Here's our challenge for today. I've got this lovely new jewel for the Longines Pocket Watch, and it needs to fit into a brass setting, but I'll need to replace this old one which has seen better days. So I've done some measurements here, and the jewel is on top, 1.4 millimeters diameter by, well, about 0.27, and then we've got this hole through the middle, 0.10. So that needs to fit into a new brass setting here, which is a tapered setting. So the largest size 1.75, and then it goes down here to about 1.65. And then the jewel will need to sit into the center here, and I might need to just taper or chamfer the insides a little bit here to fit this in. So with that, let's find some brass stock that will work for us. So I need something just a little larger than 1.75 millimeters with a little room to play. I think that first one's a bit too big for us. Oh, and that's just about 2 millimeters. I think that could work for us, so we'll start with that. I'm going to cut a small piece off the end, and we'll need to find a collet, a number 20, which is just right for 2 millimeters to fit into the lathe, if I can get this one out. So I only need about 10 millimeter piece of that brass stock, and then I deburred the edges with a file, so it should fit in nicely to this collet, and we'll get it all tightened up. Just need a small amount there to stick out of the end, and we can use it as our workpiece. I don't think I need this tail stock here, that's going to be in the way for now, so we'll just move that off the lathe. And before we get started, a little bit of spindle oil to loosen everything up. And I've set the tool rest so that we can take a facing cut first. I'm just going to get that as straight as possible. I mean, it's already looking pretty good, but we'll use a fresh graver here just to make that cut nice and flat, because this will end up being one surface of the top of that setting. So I want that to be exact. It's looking pretty good. I'll mark a center. I'll put the tailstock back for that, just so that we know where our center point is, because we'll be drilling that a little bit later. But for now, what I want to do is cut this down, and I'm going to make that slightly larger than 175, so I'm looking for 1.77 millimeters, and I want that to be parallel all the way across. We're doing this by hand. So I'm just going to keep cutting and measuring and cutting and measuring until we can get that where we want it to be. Probably could have done a little bit better of a job on my graver here to make that super straight, but there's a straight section at the end here, and I'm just going to use that to get everything parallel. we're getting really close, so let's take a measurement and just see if we're at our number yet. Yeah, that's right on, 1.77 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to mark off just that end part to where the taper would finish. So 0.36 of a millimeter. I gave myself a little bit of room actually, so that's 0.38. And I'll cut this inside section here, I think all the way across to 1.65, which is that taper diameter. And then I'll do the taper at the end. That seems to be the easiest way to do this. I'm sure there are other techniques. 1.67. Okay, so we'll cut from here to the outside edge, and that should be a smooth taper or chamfer. Getting pretty close here. A little bit more. Okay, I think that's just about there, so we can move on to start work on the inside hole. Use a small pivot drill bit to begin with, and I'm just going to do this by hand, so I'm not spinning up the motor on the lathe. I'm just turning a tailstock here and lifting up the size of the drill bit one by one. This one's sticking a little bit, so I think I'll use a small drop of cutting oil. So this diameter is going to be quite close to the number that we want on the inside, maybe a little bit more. So I've made myself a small measuring tool that will help just establish that we've got the right inside diameter. And I've also done the seat as well for where the jewel will sit. So I'll start cutting that on the inside and then keep using my measuring stick, brass, just to make sure that we've got the right diameter for the jewel seat. So a little bit more. So this will be out to about 1.4, slightly larger just to take the jewel. That's looking good. Okay, and I need to just check the depth. So I've at about 1 o'clock here on my stick, I've put a little mark for the depth. Make sure that that is the correct dimension. So our jewel should sit down just slightly below the surface at 0.02 millimeter. So I understand. We'll try the jewel and just check. That's looking pretty good. Did clean up my Rodico a little bit there, but the dimension, it might be a little bit high, but I think we can start marking this off to part it out. So we'll need to cut this end off the brass rod. I've got that marked out at 0.38, which is 0.02 bigger than we need. And I'll use my graver here just to start cutting into the rod here and see if we can get that end piece off. Oh, I'm a bit nervous that's going to fly away, so I will use a small diameter. This is a 1mm blued steel rod. And we're going to put this inside so that we can rescue our part when it comes off the end of the rod. At least that's the idea. Hopefully this works. Getting close. Ah, there it is. So this is our new setting. I'll just clean it up a little bit. I'll use some pegwood here, but I want to try and deburr some of those edges. And we can pop our jewel in, just see if that works for us. I want to push that in there. But oh, I didn't like the sound of that at all. Oh no. Oh, I cracked the jewel. I didn't make the seat deep enough. Oh. Well, let's try it on the balance staff anyway. That's too tight. Look at that. I think I need a 140/11. Okay, back to the drawing board.